let's be real for a second. If you've ever lost an entire weekend to a single typo in a network config file, well, you've been there. You know the pain. Today, we're going to dive into the VxRail tools that are specifically designed to make that kind of pain a distant memory. We're talking about turning days of manual, error-prone work into a predictable, automated process.
Seriously, just pause and think about that. What could you and your team actually get done with all that time you're currently losing to just troubleshooting manual setups? That freedom, that extra time to innovate, that's the core promise of the tools we're going to look at today.
So, before we can really appreciate the solution, we have to respect the problem, right? Setting up new infrastructure has, for the longest time, been like walking through a minefield. One tiny little mistake can set off this massive chain reaction of problems.
I mean, every single manual step you take, whether it's assigning an IP address, configuring a VLAN, or setting a DNS server, it's an open invitation for a typo. And a single misplaced number can trigger a domino effect that leads to hours of frustrating troubleshooting. It's not just inefficient, it's a process that is just begging for a smarter approach.
And that smarter approach, it's all built around intelligent automation. So instead of just giving you a slightly faster way to do the same old manual tasks, VxRail completely rethinks the whole process. It uses software to get rid of the manual labor and all the human error that naturally comes along with it.
So, here's our roadmap for this explainer. We've talked about the challenge and kind of hinted at the solution. Next up, we'll meet the core toolkit. Then we'll walk through the super simple 3-step deployment journey, peek at some advanced controls, and we'll finish up with your keys to success. Sound good?
All right, now this is where the magic really happens. Let's meet the 3 core tools that are going to become your absolute best friends for any VxRail deployment.
First up, we have VxRail Manager. The best way to think about this is like the central nervous system for your entire cluster. And it's not just some setup tool you use once and then forget about. No, this is the single interface you'll use to manage, monitor, and maintain the system for its entire life.
And just look at the scope of what this brain handles. It's doing everything. It orchestrates the initial setup, it gives you real-time health monitoring, it manages those complex one-click upgrades, and it even makes it easy to add new nodes when it's time to expand. It pulls all these critical tasks into one place, and that right there is the key to taming the complexity.
Next up is probably my favorite, the network validation tool. I just love this pre-flight check analogy because it's so perfect. This is the tool you run before you even try to deploy anything. It makes sure your network environment is ready for a smooth takeoff so you don't get any of those nasty surprises mid-flight.
Now, the really crucial thing here is that this tool proactively hunts down the most common deployment killers. You know, things like basic port connectivity, just making sure devices can actually talk to each other. It even verifies high-performance settings like jumbo frames are enabled, which lets your network send bigger chunks of data for better efficiency. Catching this stuff before you start, well, it's a massive, massive time saver.
And our third tool is the VxRail Config Wizard. So if the validation tool is your pre-flight check, this wizard is basically your GPS for deployment. It gives you turn-by-turn guidance through every single critical setting, making that initial setup unbelievably straightforward.
The real power here, though, is that the wizard doesn't just blindly accept whatever you type in. Nope, it's an interactive guide. As you're entering your network details, storage policies, and all that, it's validating them in real time. It's basically a safety net, catching potential mistakes before they can become huge deployment-stopping problems.
So, with those 3 awesome tools in our toolkit, let's see how they all come together in the actual deployment journey. And you'll see, it really just boils down to 3 simple steps. And that's it. I'm not kidding. You use the wizard to create the config, the system automatically validates everything for you, and then you just hit deploy. That final click, that's the key moment where you hand over control. From that point on, VxRail Manager automates the entire thing, building the whole cluster without you needing to lift a finger.
This slide right here, this shows you just how powerful that validation step is. I mean, take a look. A classic error, right? An IP conflict, where 2 different devices have the same address. The tool flags that immediately. Or how about a VLAN mismatch that would normally take you hours to track down? It gets highlighted before you even start. This is what turns deployment from a reactive troubleshooting nightmare into a proactive, predictable process.
Okay, so that's the guided tour. But for those of you who want to take things to the next level, VxRail also has some incredibly powerful tools for automation and managing at scale. So you kind of have 2 ways to manage things. On the left, you've got the simple point-and-click GUI. It's visual, it's user-friendly, it's perfect for your first cluster. But on the right, you have the command line interface and the REST API. And this unlocks a whole world of powerful automation. This is how you can script repeatable deployments, integrate VxRail into your DevOps pipelines, and manage dozens of clusters from a single script. You get both simplicity and power.
And this whole philosophy of guided automation goes way beyond that day one deployment. I mean, just look at upgrades. Traditionally, that's a really high-stakes, nerve-wracking process. VxRail turns it into this predictable four-step flow. From the pre-checks all the way to the final health validation, VxRail Manager is handling all the heavy lifting, taking all the risk and guesswork out of keeping your system up to date.
So, with all this incredible automation at your fingertips, how do you make sure your own deployment is truly flawless? Let's wrap this up with a few key tips for success.
You know, this quote on the screen really gets to the heart of it all. Your network is the foundation for everything. Using these tools to validate it before you deploy isn't just a nice to have, it is the single most important thing you can do to guarantee a successful outcome.
And here are some super simple habits that are going to make all the difference. If you can, practice in a lab environment first. Always, and I mean always, run the network validation tool. Make a simple checklist to just double-check your inputs before you click deploy. And remember, the official documentation is your friend. These small steps prevent really big problems.
So we've seen how VRail's configuration tools can totally tame complexity, turning one of IT's most difficult tasks into an automated, predictable, and honestly kind of fun process. The final question then isn't how you'll get your next project deployed. It's, with that challenge solved, what incredible things will you and your team now have the time to build?